For me, I have always wanted to do something that it felt like my time was valued.
Very few schools are offering classes on AI because there aren't instructors.
I put last summer, both of my kids took an AI summer camp. 2-week class taught by MIT and Harvard. If you want them, I asked our team, where do I send teenagers to learn? And I will tell you, their high schools are telling them not to use it, which I think is a huge mistake.
Well, we have a fun conversation ahead for us today, I'm sure. Lisa, my co-host, Lisa Sabat, who's all things executive producer, chief of staff, and mighty on-air personality, is with me today. And we have the privilege of chatting with Kelly Williamson, who's a new acquaintance of ours, soon to be friend, I suspect, because we were at an event down in December in Miami, in and around the Art Basel event. And an investment bank by the name of Solomon Partners hosted an event, and Lisa and I were there in attendance, and we got to meet Kelly, and she won my heart over with a story she told me, because
Yes.
being in the business of helping people express and connect, as we are at 1-800-Flowers, Lisa, maybe you could pry out of her the story she shared.
Yeah, Kelly, I made you tell me the story separately, but now I'm actually going to have you tell the story on camera because we loved it so much. How did you approach Jim at the event, and what was the story that you told him that made you think of Jim and wanting to meet him and take a picture with him?
Yeah. So, first of all, I love telling this story, and it has the fact that our paths have crossed is it means more deeply to me than I probably could express, because you all have been a part of my life for as long as can remember. And Jim, I have to confess, when you and I first started talking, and I started going on and on and on about my love of 1-800-Flowers, I didn't actually know the position. I walked into this event very quickly, and then you and I got to know each other. But the way that you received my story, and then obviously at the very end, you and I introduced ourselves to each other. It says everything about how you lead. And so, look, I turned 50 years old this year. As long as I can remember.
The same year, the year you were born was the year we started the business.
I knew that, actually, right? In doing my homework, right? And it's, we're a young 25, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But my dad every year has sent me flowers on Valentine's Day, and and continues. And as we get to know each other, you'll find out that my father has been a huge role in my life, and somebody who has really helped define, both professionally and personally, how I choose to live and what matters to me. And so the fact that every Valentine's Day, that has become symbolic, frankly, of not. I don't want to go as far to say expect it, but he did forget one Valentine's Day, and I've never let him forget it. But the fact that how he treats his kids, the role that my spouse obviously plays in my life. And so his card, I think I told you this, until I got married, says, "From the man who loves you the most." And then when I got married, he just says, "I love you, Dad," because that's now the role for your husband. So
Aww.
he ordered so many of those from you all, and your brand has been in my life. Can I tell you another quick story, though? When I came back to the office and I shared with my colleague, who is our chief operating officer, who's my partner in running the North America business for APCO, we almost got in a fight over who loves your brand more, because his uncle used to be, listen to this, his uncle used to be, and I wrote this down, your head designer on 18th Street. When he worked for you 20 years ago, he met his wife there. He went and he had a child. He then went on to pass 18 months later after working for you all. And you all have looked out for that family, and his daughter, who is our chief operating niece, I believe, if I have my facts right, their entire life. And to hear that's leading from the front. And I know we're going to talk about leadership and what it means to lead. And that is doing something that's greater than yourself. So that my dad sending me flowers and having you in my life every year has been important to my life. But hearing that, how you all take care of your employees, and listening to our chief operating officer tell me his relationship with your company just says everything. So I wanted to share that with you.
Well, Thank you so much, Kelly, for sharing that story. Kelly, the story I'd love for us to pry out of you today is Lisa and I have been talking and writing and researching a lot about what's going on in the job market. And a young lady named Michaela, who works for Lisa, has been charged with gathering the information we come across about what's going on. But your story is one that's relevant to today because you're an intern to a president of North America. Can that still happen going forward?
We talk about this a lot. I feel incredibly lucky, and it was never the plan, frankly. I told my mom I'll stay as long as I'm learning, and when I'm finished learning, I'm going to leave. And I'm still learning after all these years, really. And I think that is, I've been very, very fortunate to be in those roles. In roles that have allowed me to do that. Can it still happen today? Yes, I do believe that. I think long tenured employees are what organizations need. It's more, there's a financial component to that, but then there's a cultural component. And as organizations, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, Jim, are going through so much change today. You need employees who know the business, the customer, how to make money, all of that, and equally know the culture. And you get that with longstanding employees and that are able to really hold on to the values of an organization that help through all the change that we're going through. So I do believe it can happen. It is hard to make it happen. Leaping jobs, even in the same department, but certainly crossing departments. It requires a lot of mentors, a lot of hard work, self-advocacy, as well as others who are willing to advocate on your behalf as well. So, but yeah, I think is actually probably more important today than ever before to look at inside talent, given how much change is happening, and making sure that that cultural piece is also connected to the business aspect of it.
Lisa, you wanted to know more about APCO itself. What is it today? And
Yeah, so APCO is an advisory firm. We help organizations understand the environment that they're in and then help them grow their business and or achieve their business objectives. And so what do I mean by that? Often we're dealing with financial change. Companies come to us and they say, I want to grow my business. I want to shrink my business. I want to buy something. I want to go public, whatever, some sort of transformation or moment from a financial standpoint. We then help them from the business strategy, develop how to do that. So we're often sitting side by side with bankers. And then we help them deal with things like, do investors understand the value of the organization? Do their employees understand the change that they're going through? Can they become advocates of the brand, the reputation, but then also do they know how to develop their own employees? So a lot of employee work. And then we talk about reputation and crisis. And so when an organization gets in a complicated spot, our job is to try to mitigate that situation and or get them through it on the other side. We have people on the ground, I think, in 80 countries. We've got brick and mortar in 35. We are 41 years old this year, Jim. When I started, we were maybe 50 people, and now we're over 1,200 today. So it's been a pretty incredible ride. And our secret sauce is looking across. And so while we're 1,200 people, my job is to work with my colleagues in China, to Riyadh, to Brussels, to Tokyo, to Singapore, you name it, around the world, and bring that type of intelligence to our clients, just given how interconnected things are, and then help them, tell them what's happening, both politically, financially, and culturally, and then help them determine how to navigate that to be able to accomplish their objective.
Okay, so now you started as an intern and there were about 50 employees, and now there are over 1,200. Take us through that process. You originally said that wasn't the plan to stay with the company. So what was your plan? And give us a little picture of what it was like as an intern there.
When people ask you in interviews, what's the 5-year plan look like for you? I have always hated that question. Right? Like it's difficult to even know, and sometimes even look 5 minutes ahead. So to have five years is impossible. For me, I have always wanted to do something that it felt like my time was valued and I could do it with people that I trusted. And that is baseline. Coming straight out of school, I do think that's my dad and my mom's influence. I watched them growing up have roles that did that for them, and I wanted to have that. Straight out of school, I took a different job. It didn't give me that. I made good money, but I wasn't fulfilled. Honestly, it was really quickly the paycheck became paying my bills, and during the 40, 50, 60 hours a week plus that you're giving to a job just didn't mean anything. And so, I think that to me has been baseline. I am also bored quickly. And so, when I got this job, our CEO told me, I'm going to need you to settle into that job for a little bit and really, commit. But in between the milestones, I like to create things. I like to, I don't like hard structures. I love to be able to see something and have the ability, freedom within a framework is what we call it. And we lock on the objective and then let's build it. And that's what I've been able to do. So I have built our key client program that puts clients at the center, that our clients know they are special to APCO, and we're going to do everything we can to help you through it. I was the architect of that program. I moved to Raleigh from Washington, D.C., and I was employee number one. And it's now a 50-person operation. And through a lot of grit, we've built an incredible operation that helps service the South and bring political and local intelligence to our clients up and down the East Coast. So I've just had a lot of firsts, and the company has, it's been a mutual partnership. Right. And it doesn't always mean I got yes. And we can talk more about that. I had to be patient at times.
So it's mostly female-owned company. Is that correct?
It is. Marjorie Krause is our founder and continues to be our chairman. She was employee number one.
How has that changed or adapted the culture of the company for you, particularly as being, an executive leader who is a female presence?
Maybe it's either stereotypical or I'm completely biased, and probably both. But women are empathetic leaders, and as a whole, that's not, and I watched that you could be open, you could care about your people as much, if not more, than caring about the immediate dollar, and that would help you achieve the objective in the long run. And so I do think women make great leaders, and being open about maybe who you are a little bit more than just coming to work and doing the job. I think it's been interesting to me. That's been a big mark of my role, and making sure that folks know who I am, as well as they inviting that into a conversation. Because if you understand the other person on the other side, particularly when you're dealing with a bipartisan firm. We are a bipartisan firm, so lots of different views. But if you can get to the core of who somebody is, and what their objectives are, it really does change it. And I have watched our female leader build that into the fabric of this company. And that's something, as we've grown so quickly, that we've really tried to instill. And when we don't see it happening, call it out.
From gratitude to comfort, new beginnings to birthdays, celebrate life's moments with something special. Find the perfect gift at Harry & David. We make it easy to be thoughtful. Back to the question of how things are changing. Last spring, I had the opportunity and the privilege of being a commencement speaker at St. John's University in Queens, New York, my home borough.
Nice.
And so Lisa and I met quite a few students in preparation for that day and then since. And we're hearing from a good number of them that it's very difficult to find that first real job. Heard recently from a gal who grew up in Queens. She and her parents spent a lot of money for her to go to great school like St. John's, and graduate. And she says, and I'm a terrific hostess in a restaurant, but that's not what I went to school for. But I'm having a difficult time getting interviews. And we're hearing that, Lisa, you pretty regularly, both from the St. John's community and beyond. What's going on there, Kelly? And with AI impacting the work that would have been done by entry-level people at quite a pace, what do you portend for the next year or two in terms of starter job opportunities?
Yeah, I feel for those that are getting that are graduating right now and trying to prove that they are ready for the workforce, because the expectation of the workforce has changed, uh, in my opinion, so much faster than what we really anticipated. We've been talking about AI. We built a lab in Dubai in 2018, which I'm happy to tell you about, but anticipating this, but the change curve, what felt like overnight has changed and forced organizations to start to think differently about the type of talent they hire. And uh, I guess two things. One, if I look at 2025, it's not just AI, but you've had big companies that would do the most amount of hiring slow down in terms of what they're hiring. That's not only because of AI. That's a lot of doing because of the economy and uncertainty. Corporate America came to a um, snail's pace in Q1 of last year when it came to what to do about the political environment. Everybody kind of shrunk. They looked at what to do about the political environment, what to do about the economy. And if you go back to 2024, the amount of restructuring that was happening. So these companies have not even recovered from restructuring. You got a complicated political environment, and what underpins all of it is an uncertain economy. And then you layer AI on top of that. You've got a tightened workforce that now is getting companies are having these moments of what do we really need for the future. There are a couple of things. Look, I would, what we are telling our business line leaders and what we're recruiting for. And frankly, I have two teenagers, so I'm living this as in my own world. My daughter will go off to college next year, and it is fundamental. The kids, the entry level careers that we are hiring, we want those employees to have experience with AI, to have experience with using the technology in a way that they can then use their brain, critical thinking skills. It is
All right, that suggests there's something else then, because very few schools are offering classes on AI because there aren't
correct.
instructors.
I put last summer, both of my kids took an AI summer camp. It's 2-week class taught by MIT and Harvard. If you want them, I asked our team, where do I send teenagers to learn? And I will tell you, their high schools are telling them not to use it, which I think is a huge mistake. I have debated about doing my own advocacy, and my teenagers are begging me not to because they would be more. But I think it's a huge mistake. And so yes, get going out, learning it, and then applying it to something, a project, using it. So when you get to the interview stage, you're able to say, this is how I've used it. Here's my observation. Yes, we all have a lot to learn, but you're not starting from ground zero. And then it really gets to the critical thinking. These kids have got to learn to take a set of information and have a conversation with you and me to say, here's what I see in it. Here's what we could do with it. Here's what I don't like about it. Anything that suggests I can take a lot of information that AI is going to synthesize for me, and then I can take it one step further with my brain.
So, one of your children is about to enter college or in that college process. Has that changed, or does it need to change now with AI and learning AI, and you're sending your children off to camps that can give them education on the things that their school's not giving them? What's that approach for them, or what path do you think that you're trying to lead them on so that they end up in a good spot where they're happy and fulfilled the same way you are and the same way you saw your own parents?
We're in the wait and see mode. Lena, my daughter, has applied to colleges, and now we wait to see what comes back. That application does not match the real world experience. That application is driven toward standardized testing, GPAs, which the GPAs, if you go across the country, is it weighted? Is it unweighted? There's a huge disparity in terms of the type of education these kids are getting. Are there caps? I live in a state where there are caps by your county of how many people get in, and the ability to keep people in state, out of state. So how do you differentiate yourself? And it is crazy town. I hope by the time your kids get there, it's a little bit, the gap is closed.
So tell us a little bit about what you're doing at APCO. You said in 2018 you started an AI center in Dubai.
Yeah. So I am really proud of it. Really proud of it. So in 2018, we went out and hired some data scientists, some PhDs that it is a degree. At that time, it wasn't something I was watching very much, but we put a few people to start playing with the different tools, understanding what's out there, with the hypothesis that it would eventually change the way that we work. And thank God we did that, because it has given APCO a competitive edge, frankly, in terms of how we use it internally, but also how we use it with our clients. And right now, we're using what we call Margie. We've named it after our founder, Marjorie Krause. And she is our AI engine that our clients are using, that become the intelligence dashboard to influence something, fill in the blank. So we have a client right now that is using it to, let me back up. Margie consumes data from the outside world, anything that's out there, policy related, any country, any social media, any earned media, and it feeds it into a system. So when you come in the morning, you see it. We also feed into it anything the client wants. This one particular client says, I want to know what health and nutrition is going to look like 5 years from now. Help me understand the behaviors of consumers today, what consumers are not talking about, what they're buying, and layer in nutrition data. So we've put in any nutrition data we can find, plus their business, and they're going to use it to change their menu items, because and it's going to help them from a strategy standpoint produce. We've got other clients that are using it to influence policy around the world. But the point is, the world's moving quickly. How do you get everything in one spot and operate from a frame at any moment during the day, so you can make smart choices to apply that critical thinking that we were just talking about with the students coming out of school, that we want them to have, and that's why we need them to have it. So that's probably the hottest thing that's happening at APCO right now. I mean, we're in the middle of, if you're reading the paper and there's something intense happening, which there is a lot, we're in the middle of it. So our people are giving advice on it. We're proud to be in some pretty important spaces and using Margie to help us get that intelligence, for sure.
So let's say a company comes to you, right, and they're in some sort of like crisis mode. Is it important for you to do a deep dive into the company to see what the culture is already? Does that have any influence on what your direction would be?
Sometimes we have the benefit of doing homework. Often you're building the plane while you're flying it, right? And so we will quickly do things like, ideally, we've got people on the ground inside a company, sitting there, and part of it becoming almost part of the organization for whatever. If you call me today and we've never spoken before, I would ask you, I'm going to send a team. And so they're there, and that's part of information flow, so we can move faster. But that's also to start to get a pulse on where we are internally, what that feels like, and what the employee base looks like. And then there are quick things, like a good company's done employee satisfaction, client satisfaction studies. They've done investor perception studies. If none of that exists, we're moving really, really fast to put polls in the field. With AI and other things, we can have a poll back quickly.
What we were chatting about is, how has social media upended your world? How does it change the responsibilities of leaders to, whether they like it or not, to have some kind of a public persona, to provide some transparency into their own values and opinions, which leads to, you said you're a shop that is open to all points of view and all political spectrums. So let me turn that question on you as a leader of APCO to answer the question about how you would help your clients. How do you think about your brand? The shoemaker's kids have the holes in their shoes. How do you think about marketing the APCO brand, your services, your business? How do you think about being an attractive place for people to come and want to work, for clients to want to reach out to? How do you position yourself as thought leaders in areas that are important to your existing and potential future client base? So what say you about how to market yourself? And that might give us some insights into how we should think about marketing ourselves.
You asked me at the beginning of this about my career, and I spend a lot of time, and I think it's because of the older I'm getting, thinking about what's next and what's the imprint that I want to leave, right? And for me, I think when I think about my brand, why is it that I've chosen to stay at a company for 26 years, right? Why is it that I care I continue to learn after 26 years, right? And feel inspired, and there's a lot of gas left in my tank. And so when I think about my brand, it's about the people first, really. I was taught very early, when you make a mistake, look yourself in the mirror first, and make sure that you are uh, saying out loud what you learned before you tell everybody else what they should have learned. I was fired from a client when I was about 26, 27 years old because I didn't listen. And she told me that is one of the greatest gifts she's ever given me. I had to go tell my boss, and my boss didn't fire me. In fact, she sat me down and said, look, what did you learn from this? And how are you going to apply it for the future? So I got 2 lessons in that, which is, and then why is it that somebody would want to come work at APCO versus anywhere else? And so that's what I think about with my brand. I'll say out loud, we're actually in the active conversation right now about what's next for my public persona, if you will. And I struggle to talk about, not that I struggle to talk about the geopolitical dynamic of the world, but there's a lot of people who can do that. And so how is it that I'm going to leave this place better than when I found it, make sure that the folks that are here are learning, and we can do good work? And that's how I think about it. And then I spend a lot of time looking at other industry leaders, and trying to stay true to me. I'm a hardworking mom who grew up in rural Southwest Virginia, and now have the benefit of working for a massive global company, and didn't go international until I was 22 years old. So there's a lot of me that I genuinely feel grateful to have the seat that I'm in, and what comes next for me. And when I talk about it, that's what I'd rather talk about than what's going to happen with US-China relationships, because many can do that, but that's not what people will remember.
Kelly, what about from a brand's perspective? Do you think that a brand should be vocal about their views on, let's say, political concerns or things that are going on, or should a brand be, bipartisan and try to stay out of those conflicts?
Unsatisfactory answer, but a real one. It really depends on who you are, and the business you're in, and what you've said prior. So wading into a geopolitical moment when it doesn't affect your business, your employees aren't on the ground or affected by it, or you've ever said anything before, I would tell you, why are we doing this? Right. Versus it does check some of those boxes. We should have a serious conversation about the risk and reward.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
One of the hardest things when the world produces a moment is getting everybody to take a breath. Jim, you asked me about social media. When someone pokes you in the eye, if you care so deeply about the thing you produce, the instinct is, I'm going to fight back. And often saying nothing is better than doing something. And making sure boards and C-suites are preparing for that scenario. So the moment something happens, you're able to turn to them and say, we're going to take a breath. We're going to monitor how much of this is affecting our business or our reputation. And then we'll decide what we're going to do. Like that first 24 hours, sometimes it is imperative, particularly if it's a big crisis. More often it's an issue, and CEOs and boards need to get comfortable with, if you're engaging in today's world, there's a lot of opinions out there that you've got to weigh the impact and not just wade into the water, because often we see folks make things worse.
Celebrate love
with 1-800-Flowers.com.
We were 11 years old when we met.
She didn't like me at all.
We played tennis together, and I told him that I was pretty good, and I wasn't.
She makes me want to be a better person.
Oh, these are cute.
Celebrate your love with 1-800-Flowers.com. We put out a newsletter each Sunday called the Celebrations Pulse, and we had a meeting about editorial direction, what we're working on, and maybe Lisa, you could share some of the reactions we're getting from our community. I mean, some of these relationships have become deeply personal, including, we won't mention her name, but a lady I was talking to Lisa about yesterday who I just corresponded with right before this call. I've never met her. We've never spoken, but we have a genuine relationship through through some really tumultuous experiences in her personal life. And it's amazing how you develop these pen pal kinds of relationships. And I was so tickled to hear what some people had to say about it, Lisa.
Jim writes a weekly newsletter, and we encourage people to write back to us and to say, what their thoughts are and comment and share stories. And so Jim has tons of correspondence where people are, sharing their story, and then they get surprised because Jim actually responds to them and, gives his 2 cents in, and then they're like, oh, you're really there. And so they start telling even more stories and opening up, and we develop this community of what we call the Celebrations Pulse newsletter. And we now turn around and share some of those stories with our audience, either in the letter or on another form of content through video. And somebody wrote into us and said, because the letter goes out every Sunday, that they consider our letter the Sunday magic. And that every Sunday they're so excited because they're going to see what we're talking about on our newsletter. And it's just...
You all create such a stickiness in people's personal lives. And you are right, as you all have grown and more new people have come and people who have left. I find that people who exit organizations can also be incredible ambassadors, right? They've gone on to do other things. And
the last story I'll share with you is a good friend of ours. His name is Jeff Sonnenfeld, and he's one of the foremost experts on leadership in the world. He's an associate dean at Yale School of Management up at Yale. And he convenes a group called the Yale CEO Institute, and he does that both in New York and Washington. And it's a tremendous event, and he's built this incredible community of CEOs and people around the CEO function that's just extraordinary. I've learned so much from him, but he has not been the biggest cheerleader for President Trump. But to show that he's genuine about looking at leadership, he has a book coming out called Trump's 10 Commandments of Leadership. And what he said is, look, this is a man who's run for president, was a TV star, a real estate developer. He ran for president. He won, he lost, he won, whatever. Clearly, he's effective, and he's a leader. So love him or hate him, from a leadership point of view, let's look at his behavior and see what we can learn. And I marvel at people who can say, put my feelings pro or con aside, I want to learn from this situation. And I assume that's what you do every day with your clients is, I don't care about the issue. What have we learned here? What are the core issues? You mentioned it early on. What are our values, and what is it we want to accomplish?
Yeah, we yes, and I agree. I admire it deeply. And our job is to find common ground, something that we can agree on that then advances change. We talk a lot that the line of change is not straight. It is not a linear line. But if you know where you're headed and you can advance the ball, either how big or short, long or short, it is progress. And doing that's finding common ground. And you are right. He is a masterful communicator.
People in our community have heard this, watched this, and they want to get in touch with Kelly Williamson and learn more about APCO and how they should be working with you. How do they get in touch?
The easiest way to do it is apcoworldwide.com. I'm there. I think my cell phone's even on there. That's how you find me. And my email, kwilliamson@apcoworldwide.com.
Well, I'm so glad the Solomon people invited us to come to their wonderful dinner. I'm so glad we met. I'm so glad your dad is so thoughtful and sets a high bar for us as dads and granddads. But the serendipity, meeting you, how nice, how lucky are we, and we get to spend this time.
I feel the same way. Thank you for this opportunity and a continued conversation, which I know there'll be more. Yeah, I'll see both of you soon, and thank you for this moment.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Talk to you soon.